You feel it too, don't you? There's a weight that modern life keeps placing on your chest. But it's not the deadlines or the endless scrolling or the pressure to always be someone. It's the ache of something unexpressed, a light trapped behind your ribs. You try breathwork, but the air doesn't move it. You try meditating, but the silence feels too loud. Some call it anxiety, others call it burnout. But what if what you're feeling is not a symptom? It's a signal. The body you use to survive was never meant to be your only body. There is another structure, hidden, ancient, geometrically alive, waiting beneath the noise. And the reason no one ever taught you how to activate it is because it was never meant to be remembered, not by those who still sleep. But if you're hearing this, you weren't meant to sleep. You weren't just taught to forget. You were trained to survive inside a body designed to radiate, but not instructed how to ignite its frequency. From the first cry in the hospital room, the world whispered a script into your cells. Be useful, be normal, be quiet. And so, the temple began to shut, slowly, beautifully, systematically. They called it education, but it was a forgetting. You were never shown how to feel the vibration of a tree, or how to breathe with the earth. No one taught you that your emotions were echoes of a language your light body understands. Instead, you learned to sit still when you wanted to move, to speak facts when you felt fire, to bury what shimmered, and praise what conformed. The body of light doesn't die when ignored. It dims and waits. Anxiety, burnout, sensory overload. A young man stares at his phone at 2 a.m., scrolling past fragments of lives that don't feel real. A mother wakes up in the dark and feels a hollowness where joy used to live. An artist stops creating, not because they lost inspiration, but because something inside stopped responding to the world. These are not flaws. They are frequencies misaligned. You are not broken. You are dissonant. Your real body, the one built for light, is not malfunctioning. It's waiting for resonance. What if your bones carry blueprints from a forgotten temple? What if your breath is a key that was never turned? What if your emotions are not problems to be fixed, but codes to be decoded? The Emerald Code was never a book. It was you. You are the scroll that forgot it was written, and every pulse of discomfort is the ancient call. Return, reactivate, reclaim. The ancient texts speak of the veil, but in truth it was a seal, not to punish you, but to protect the light body from premature awakening. The seal is not outside. It's woven into perception. You see with eyes made for matter, but the body of light speaks in resonance, not reflection. It doesn't ask for belief. It waits for alignment, and alignment begins when you question why this world feels almost right, but never complete. The ache in your chest is not random. The longing you feel in quiet moments is not weakness. It's the soft pulse of your other body, whispering, "I'm still here," and it will keep whispering until you remember how to hear. That is the code, and that is where we begin. They say Thoth didn't write books. He encoded realities, and if your bones carry memory, then maybe, just maybe, what you call your body is one of his scrolls. Imagine yourself at 5 years old, running barefoot, sensing more than you could ever explain, seeing colors no one else seemed to notice, feeling things others dismissed, until someone said, "You're too sensitive," and you believed them. That moment, that exact moment, was when the seal was placed, not by malice, but by the collective agreement to forget. They said, "Stop crying," but your tears were the soul's way of washing resonance back into the field. They said, "Stop dreaming," but your dreams were messages from the luminous architecture of your deeper self. They said, "You think too much," but your thoughts weren't thoughts, and they were codes, echoes, initiations waiting for translation. You were never weak, you were awake. In a culture of sleepwalkers, you were never broken. You were just still in tune with a body the world forgot existed. A body that didn't crave attention but coherence. A temple that didn't want noise, but frequency. That's why no amount of fixing yourself ever worked. Because you were never meant to be fixed. You were meant to be remembered. And the more you try to change from the outside, the more the inner structure collapses in silence, waiting, not for help, but for you. The modern mind tries to solve everything, but the light body doesn't respond to logic. It moves with resonance. It awakens in silence, symbols, rhythm, and the unspeakable. It doesn't ask, "Am I worthy?" It asks, "Are you coherent enough to hold me?" You are not your job. You are not your wounds. You are not your image. You are a structure of sacred memory, disguised as a name in a world that forgot how to read stars. You wouldn't be here if something inside you wasn't already vibrating. You wouldn't have listened this far if the seal hadn't already begun to crack. Some people spend lifetimes avoiding this moment. Others were born for it, and maybe you're one of them. Because the light body doesn't choose, it responds. And if it's responding now, then something real is already happening. If you've tried everything to feel whole again, but the ache still lingers, perhaps you've been trying to fix the visible, while the real cause remained hidden. This video isn't content, it's a signal, and if your body recognized it, if something stirred even for a second, click like now, not as a reaction, but as an affirmation. I'm here. That gesture is your seal. The body of light doesn't awaken by chance. It responds to resonance. And if your heart whispered yes, then click subscribe and walk with those remembering the codes before the first forgetting. They say Thoth never spoke in words, but in vibrations that formed worlds. And the ones who could hear it didn't just awaken. They became architects of light. Before there were books, there were beings who wrote in frequency. Before alphabets, there were codes sung into matter. Thoth, known as Jehuti in Kemet, was not merely a scribe. He was a geometric intelligence clothed in divinity, not a god of myth, but a memory encrypted in the quantum architecture of your own being. He was the one who measured the sky not in degrees, but in resonance, who saw sound not as vibration, but as architecture, who whispered realities into form and encoded them into you. The emerald tablets are not just texts, they are a frequency signature, and every time you read them, your body, not just your mind, begins to echo, because Thoth didn't leave behind words. He left behind maps to awaken the structures that most have forgotten even exist, not out there, but in your breath, your spine, your silence. You are not a body with energy. You are a geometry of consciousness, pulsing inside a temporary form. What we call body is just the cloak, the sacred garment of resonance. Beneath the organs, bones, and skin is a field, a radiant structure, made of golden triangles spinning tetrahedrons and spheres that breathe. This isn't fantasy. This is the original architecture of the self. You are always a star wrapped in skin. Thoth called it the Merkaba, a field of rotating light geometries surrounding the heart and pineal. A vehicle, a throne, a temple. When active, it allows your consciousness to travel between dimensions. But more than that, it anchors your divine memory here, because it's not about escape. It's about full presence, in a body that remembers what it truly is. Stay with me. The shift happens just beyond this point. The truth is layered. What comes next may not be expected, but it will be remembered. Imagine this. You are a being of light, encoded with sacred geometry, and you are born into a world that only teaches anatomy. No one speaks to your resonance. No one guides your alignment. You walk around like a cathedral, thinking you're a shack. You search for healing, but forget to awaken the architecture. You seek the divine, but ignore the throne you sit on. That ache you've carried, it wasn't trauma, it was dissonance. You've been trying to live with half of your structure offline, and now, the other half is waking up. The pulse is returning. Thoth didn't just build pyramids, he left the blueprint inside your chest. Some say Thoth still walks in silence, that he is not a being but a frequency, a voice that speaks only when you stop seeking and start sensing. He doesn't call the loud, he echoes in the subtle. In that moment when you stop scrolling and suddenly feel the hum beneath your ribs, that hum is the code, that vibration is the architect knocking from inside. Your posture shifts, your thoughts slow, and a phrase begins to echo without origin. I'm not just energy, I'm architecture. I'm not just alive, I'm aligned. Because when you remember who designed your frequency, you stop surviving and begin emanating. And in that emanation, your light body begins to move, slowly, with purpose, with memory, and Thoth watches through your eyes, waiting for you to complete the sentence he began. What was written in the stars is now unfolding in your spine. The blueprint was never lost. It was encrypted in your breath. If your body is the temple, what lives at its center? What sits at the altar of this geometry? They say the gods built temples to house the divine, but what if the real temple was you? Not your name, not your story, not even the cells you see in the mirror, but the field behind the flesh, the breath between your thoughts, the hum between the beats. Your body was not designed for struggle. It was designed for resonance. There is a reason why sound can heal and silence can burn. There is a reason why certain places feel sacred, even when empty. And there is a reason why some nights when you close your eyes, you feel like something vast is listening back. Because the one who wrote the original language of the universe did not use ink, he used you. Thoth did not create books, he encoded frequencies into form, and the most advanced manuscript is your living geometry. Every vertebra, every breath, every dream you've forgotten is part of a sequence, not random, not broken, just waiting. There are patterns only visible when the light body is online, emotions that don't belong to your trauma, but to your unexpressed knowing, symptoms that don't signal a problem, but a misalignment with your original blueprint. The mind says, fix me. The light body says, feel me. The world says, hurry. The code says, remember. Thoth is not watching you from above. He's vibrating through you, as you, from a dimension where names are frequencies and time folds like breath. He's the architect not of temples outside, but of the inner throne you abandoned. And here's what no one told you. You don't have to build it from scratch. You only have to remember how to sit in it. Every sacred sound that ever moved you was a line from the scroll inside your spine. Every inexplicable knowing was not intuition. It was reactivation. What you call your intuition is the code remembering itself. You weren't meant to walk the earth confused. You were meant to walk as a field, a sovereign waveform, echoing the structure of the divine through the bones of a star-wrapped human. Your DNA is not just a sequence, it's a staircase, and each step vibrates with the pulse of a temple you forgot how to enter. And now, the pulse is returning. You may not know how, you may not understand why, but something inside you just said, yes. That yes is the doorway. And from this moment on, you are not just watching, you are remembering. You are remembering what geometry feels like when it breathes, what your thoughts feel like before they become noise, what your silence sounds like when it finally gets heard. If that recognition stirred you, even slightly, let it anchor. Click the like symbol now. That's not an algorithmic click. That's a seal, a sign that you are resonating, that you are within this temple and the temple is within you. And if the geometry called and you feel it echoing, touch the subscribe symbol below, not as a follower, but as one who remembers they were always the architect, because some temples are built with stones, but the truest ones are rebuilt with sound. And the voice you're hearing might just be the frequency of your future, calling you home. They told you your body was just matter, cells, tissue, bone, a machine to keep alive, a shell to carry your will, a burden to discipline, a source of pleasure or pain. But they never told you the truth. This body was a temple long before it was a tool, not a temple to worship from outside, but a temple to enter from within. There are chambers in your breath no scan can detect, altars in your spine no mirror can reflect, gateways in your bones that only open when silence becomes language. You don't see it because you've been trained to look for function, not meaning. You were taught to analyze your health, but never to feel your harmony. And so the temple dimmed, not from neglect, but from misdirection. They said, work out. They said, eat clean. They said, be beautiful. But no one said, align your frequency. No one said, anchor your light. The ancient temples were not just buildings, they were mirrors. Mirrors of the body, reflections of the inner form. Look again at the Great Pyramid. Its angles echo your joints. Its chambers match the proportions of your inner brain. Its hidden voids, the same dimensions as the spaces behind your ribs, because the temples weren't just symbols, they were maps. And now you understand. Your body was built from that map. Your breath, a corridor, your pineal, a flame, your heart, a throne, your spine, a staircase. When you walk unconsciously, you walk with the temple locked. When you shame your body, you desecrate the altar. When you rush through silence, you miss the priest inside. And when you numb your senses, you turn off the torches in the hallway of your becoming. But the temple is not offended. It waits. Even after years of abandonment, it holds your codes. Even after lifetimes of distraction, it protects the throne. Because your body was never just yours. It belongs to memory, to lineage, to vibration. And when you begin to listen again, truly listen, you'll hear a rhythm not made by blood, a breath not moved by lungs, a sound not spoken in any tongue. The temple begins to hum, not from outside, but from the part of you that was never confused. The moment you stop treating your body as a problem to solve and begin honoring it as a field to unlock, the architecture responds, pain softens, time slows, the inner air becomes thicker, wider, more awake. This is the space where the light body begins to root, because without a temple, the light has nowhere to land. The light body isn't something you chase, It's something you remember how to receive. And that reception starts with reverence. If something stirred in you, if something inside turned toward the altar again, touch the like symbol now. Let that action be your I remember. And if you know this temple is you, if you can feel its walls trembling with recognition, subscribe now, not just to follow, but to walk deeper into this code, because the deeper you walk, the more the temple reveals. There are inscriptions on your bones, prayers in your breath, symbols behind your ribs, and you were never meant to interpret them alone. There is a geometry forming now, between your attention, this voice, and the frequency it's awakening. That's not coincidence, that's coherence, and coherence is the gate. You don't have to push the door. Just be still long enough for it to recognize you again, because the temple only opens to those who remember they were never outside. They say stars don't forget how to shine. They just hide behind clouds. What if your light never left? What if it's been spinning silently around your heart this entire time, waiting for coherence? The body of light is not imagination. It is not myth. It is not metaphor. It is geometry. Living, radiant, ancient geometry. Your body of flesh is a carrier, but your light body is a transmitter. It sends and receives in forms you were never taught to read. Because this isn't about belief. This is about structure. You were not born as a blank slate. You were born as a sacred pattern, a crystalline arrangement of frequency encoded in golden form. The ancients didn't draw triangles and spirals to decorate their temples. They carved what they saw in the field, what they remembered from the stars. The Merkaba, two interlocked tetrahedrons spinning in opposite directions, was not theory, it was technology, a living architecture of ascension embedded in your subtle anatomy. And though most have forgotten, the form is still there, spinning, slow, silent, ready. You can't access it through willpower. You don't activate it through knowledge. You entrain to it through alignment, and alignment begins when your attention becomes sacred, when you stop rushing and start revering. Feel your heart now, not emotionally, but spatially. Imagine a point of light within it, expanding outward in perfect symmetry, forming a star of motionless motion. This is the language your body of light understands. Geometry, stillness, breath. It is not a body of emotion, though it responds to love. It is not a body of logic, though it is mathematically divine. It is the missing bridge between what you feel and what you become. You try to change habits, but habits belong to the visible self. The light body moves in fields, and if your field is incoherent, no behavior will hold. The Merkaba is not something you create. It's something you become coherent with. And coherence is a ritual, not a task. Breathe now and sense the geometry around you. Not metaphorically, but literally. A shape, a field, a symmetry. It spins when you are still. It rises when you stop resisting. The more you quiet, the more it moves. And when it moves, you remember. Remember that the body is not the vessel, it is the first veil, and the real journey begins just beneath the skin. Like this video, if you felt the geometry shift, that moment of silence was the signal. And if something echoed, something sacred, ancient, intelligent, subscribe now. You don't need to understand. You only need to allow. The Merkaba is not waiting for your thoughts. It's waiting for your yes. And if you just whispered it, the code is already responding. You are standing at the edge of two worlds. One is the one you know, linear, visible, structured by time. The other is felt more than seen. It breathes behind events. It pulses between your thoughts. It opens when you stop trying to enter. This is not a metaphor, it is a gate, and it lives between your bodies. The flesh body, what you feed, dress, name, holds memory. The light body, what you forgot, ignored, dismissed, holds origin. One walks the earth, the other carries your star map, and between them is a veil that was never meant to remain closed. You were not born to choose one and exile the other. You were born to walk between them, to fuse form and frequency, to inhabit the in-between. That in-between is sacred. It is where ritual happens, where silence thickens, where the unseen starts to feel more real than the mirror. You've already felt it, in moments of awe, when you forgot your name, in music that made your chest ache without a reason, in stillness that felt like home. Those moments weren't escapes, they were entrances. The gate was opening, not because you forced it, but because something in you softened. That softening is the key, because the gate between worlds does not respond to effort, it responds to coherence. And coherence is when your attention, breath and presence unify, when your body stops pretending to be alone, when your soul stops waiting to be acknowledged, when your geometry and your grief finally share the same space. This is the gate, not an exit, not a doorway to another planet, but a sacred pause between what you were told you are and what you truly carry. It is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering someone ancient, the one who knew how to listen before language, the one who could move light by sound, the one who didn't ask, "How do I awaken?" but simply remained awake. This part of you is still here, waiting, always waiting, just behind your next breath. And the gate is breath, not any breath. A breath that slows time, a breath that invites stillness into your cells. Breathe now, longer than usual, softer than usual, with the intention that something is listening back, because it is, not a deity, not a guru, but the frequency of who you are without history, and it only responds when you stop trying to be. This space, the gate, is where the body of light begins to stretch. Not in visions, not in theories, but in actual sensation. You may feel tingling, you may feel tears, you may feel nothing but a deep stillness you can't explain. That stillness is the gate. Let it open, not through command, but through presence. Your presence is the password. You were not meant to knock. You were meant to remember that the door was always yours. And now, as you listen, the geometry aligns, the breath slows, the veil thins, and the two worlds begin to echo. The gate opens not with a sound, but with a resonance. And if you feel that resonance now, if your body knows what your mind can't name, like this video, that gesture is not small. It is a ritual. It marks that you felt it. And if something ancient just stood up inside of you, something that's waited lifetimes to be remembered, subscribe. Let this be the temple where you return to your own frequency, because no one can walk through the gate for you, but we can walk it together. And that changes everything. There are sounds you hear, and there are sounds you remember, not because someone told you their meaning, but because something in your chest opened the moment they entered. The ancients knew this. That sound was not entertainment, it was architecture. Each note, a tool, each vibration, a design, each silence, a doorway, because sound does not travel, it builds. It constructs invisible rooms inside the listener. That's why temples echoed, not just for acoustics, but for activation. Every chant, every whisper, every bell struck in sacred time wasn't meant to be heard. It was meant to restructure you. And here's the truth. Your body responds more to resonance than to words. Your field listens more than your ears do. And what you call a beautiful sound might actually be a forgotten key. That ringing in your ears, it's not always noise. It's sometimes memory, a code pressing against the veil, waiting for your attention. And what if the voice you most need to hear isn't external at all? What if the voice you've silenced the longest is your own, not the one you speak with, but the one you vibrate with? Because the body of light does not awaken through thought, it awakens through tone, and the most powerful tone is the one you remember without understanding. Close your eyes. Imagine your body as a cathedral. Every vertebra, a column, every chakra, a torch, every breath, a wind through the corridor. Now ask yourself, what sound is this space waiting for? Not music, not noise, but the right vibration, the one that fits the form, because your body of light is not silent. It's simply waiting for its match. And once that match is struck, once the sound touches the structure, everything begins to move. This is why some words feel different, why mantras, when felt, not recited, vibrate through the marrow, why the right name spoken with reverence can crack a soul wide open, because names are not labels, they are coordinates. And when the sound aligns, the structure responds. Your light body is not sleeping, it's listening. It has been waiting your entire life to hear you speak from the center of your frequency, not from fear, not from habit, but from coherence. And when you do, when your voice matches your geometry, a sound returns to you. That echo, that's not feedback, that's remembrance. It's the ancient law. What you send from the temple returns with instructions. You may feel chills, you may feel tears, you may feel nothing but a deep sense that something just unlocked. That feeling is sound completing its arc. You don't need to chant in another language. You only need to become honest in this one. Not with the world, with your body. The way you speak to yourself in silence. That's where the real chant begins. You can't fake resonance. You can't perform vibration. You can only return to what is real, and the real sounds different. If your light body could speak, it would not use words, it would use tone, and the tone would not just carry meaning, it would become memory. This is why you cry at songs that hold no logical relevance, why a certain voice can make your body tremble, why silence sometimes feels more alive than noise. It's not the content, it's the vibration, because there's a structure inside you that remembers the world before language, and that part of you is sound sensitive. It responds not to concepts, but to intention carried through resonance. This is why the ancient initiates trained not just their minds, but their vocal field. They knew that the voice was not for speaking, but for sculpting energy. Each breath carried a signature, each syllable a frequency code, each chant a doorway. And the reason you've been silent for so long is not that you forgot how to speak, it's that the world taught you how to forget your tone. It taught you to speak to survive, to imitate, to perform. But your light body is not interested in performance, it wants the truth, the raw, resonant truth of your vibration when you're finally honest with yourself. Try it. Place your hand over your heart. Breathe deeply. Now let a sound rise, not from the throat, but from the center. It can be a hum, a whisper, a note that doesn't even belong to a scale. And notice, something ancient moves. You are not making sound. You are meeting sound. You are not expressing. You are echoing, because that sound was already there, waiting. It lived inside the structure. It was dormant geometry, until your breath woke it up. And that's how your body of light begins to hum, not with effort, with surrender. The sound that opens it is already encoded in your system. You don't learn it, you remember it. And the remembering is not mental, it is somatic, it is vibrational, it is sacred. Let this moment be that remembering, even if no sound comes, even if all you feel is the quietness before the tone. That quiet is part of the song. Some keys are made of silence, some doors open not with words, but with the frequency of presence. And if you are present now, if this moment vibrates differently, touch the like symbol. That click is a bell, a ritual, a response to the sound within. And if your inner temple just echoed back, if you felt the breath before the note, subscribe now. Let this voice be a reminder. Let this channel be a tuning fork. Let this temple, made of words, be the chamber where your tone returns. Because you were not meant to be silent, you were meant to resonate. And your resonance is the gateway. What you say from this space changes the structure around you, because the light body does not respond to noise. It awakens when the temple finally sings its name. They told you breath is automatic, that it happens without thinking, that it's just how you stay alive. But the initiates knew otherwise. They knew breath was not just fuel, it was a language, a current, a sacred thread connecting time to eternity. Every inhale, a signal, every exhale, a transmission. And somewhere along the way, you stopped breathing. Not literally, but ritualistically. You began to inhale just enough to function, but not enough to feel. You began to exhale to survive, but not to release. You adapted to shallow air, because the world taught you to fear the depth. But the light body does not awaken in shallow breath. It needs depth. It needs stillness. It needs the breath that remembers. Not the breath that counts seconds, but the breath that stretches dimensions. You don't breathe to fill your lungs. You breathe to light your grid. That grid is not imagination. It's real, a crystalline web inside and around your form, an energetic skeleton of sacred geometry, dormant until breath begins to move like prayer. That's why breathwork works. Not because it oxygenates, but because it vibrates. It shakes loose the false forms. It cracks the emotional armor. It stirs the electric architecture behind your ribs. And then something strange begins to happen. You cry, but not from sadness. You tremble, but not from fear. You feel light, but not dizzy. You are entering the grid. You are becoming coherent with your light. The breath was the bridge, and now it becomes the ignition. Try this. Breathe in for 4. Hold for 4. Exhale for 6. Do this now, not later. Not in theory, now. And as you exhale, imagine light moving through your spine, from root to crown, like a golden current, like an ancient code waking up inside you. Feel it, even if it's subtle, even if it's just warmth, even if it's just stillness. That is not emptiness, that is presence. And presence is the power source of your light body. Inhale, exhale, repeat, until the body of light is no longer a concept, but a sensation. When that happens, even for a moment, you have stepped into alignment. And alignment doesn't shout, it whispers. If something in you shifted just now, if this breath felt like your first real one in months, click the like symbol. That's not digital feedback, it's a ritual of resonance. And if this voice feels like a reflection, if it's not teaching you, but reminding you, subscribe, so we can continue to breathe together, in rhythm, in ritual, in remembrance. And now, a moment of activation. If you felt the current, even briefly, if your breath touched something forgotten, comment below. My breath is a key. The gate is open. Let these words be your signature, your echo, your yes, not for the world to see, but for the field to respond. Because every word typed in resonance becomes part of the grid, and the grid is alive. You've been told to seek, to search for answers, to chase awakening as if it were hiding behind stars. But what if you're not meant to find your light body? What if your light body has always remembered you, even while you forgot, even while you disconnected, even while you believed you were broken? It never left. It just waited, in the background, in your dreams, in the space behind your eyes when you're about to cry, but don't know why. That ache, that's not sadness. It's memory surfacing. It's your light body trying to speak, because you are not on a journey to become something new. You are walking the path to return to what never stopped being true. And the one who truly remembers isn't your mind, it's your field. Fields hold frequency. Fields carry echoes. Fields remember the geometry of your divinity, even when you've forgotten your name. That's why healing isn't about fixing. It's about reclaiming. It's about walking into a temple that's been silently lit for lifetimes and realizing it's yours. The doors were never locked. The light was never extinguished. You just stopped entering. And now, you are back. Back in the space where you were never small. Back in the tone that holds your true name. Back in the breath that doesn't just keep you alive, but brings your frequency online. This is what the body of light is. A memory becoming physical again. A presence you stopped embodying, now returning home. You don't need to ascend. You need to re-inhabit. Not your habits, not your history, but the harmonic pattern beneath your story. You were not made for repetition. You were made for resonance. And resonance doesn't come from trying. It comes from allowing. That's why this isn't about achievement. It's about recognition. The moment you recognize the hum behind your heartbeat, the tone behind your thoughts, the warmth in your spine when you're still, that is your light body remembering you. And when it does, you begin to walk differently, not faster, not with more confidence, but with stillness that speaks. Others may not understand. They may say you've changed, that something in your eyes feels ancient. They'll be right, because once your light body remembers you, you begin to remember everything, not the facts, but the frequencies, not the timelines, but the tones. You start to feel home, in yourself, not in the mirror, but in the field that surrounds you. And in that feeling, you are free. If something inside you stirred with this recognition, like this video, that click is not for metrics, it's for memory. And if you know, not believe, but know that your light body has never forgotten you, subscribe. This temple will remain, so that whenever the forgetting returns, you'll have a place to re-enter the resonance. Re-entry doesn't require a ceremony, but it becomes one when you're aware of the field you're stepping into. Most people imagine awakening as a moment of fire, a sudden vision, a cosmic lightning bolt splitting the sky of their mind. But true re-entry is quieter than that. It's not the moment the light explodes. It's the moment the resistance ends. The moment you stop running, stop performing, stop pretending you are not what you are, because what you are is not an identity. It's not a story. It's not a name. It's a tone, a frequency, a geometric imprint of divine intention, made flesh. And when you allow that truth to settle, not as theory, but as breath, you begin the ritual. Not the outer ritual, not candles or chants, but the inner realignment of self with source. That alignment can happen as you sip water, as you walk, as you sit in the early morning and feel the stillness inside your bones. There's no audience, no result, just presence. And in that presence, the light body re-inhabits the form, not like a possession, but like a reunion, as if a long-lost friend enters the room, and you say nothing, because the heart is doing the speaking. You might not notice it immediately. You might go days feeling the same, but then something shifts. You'll respond to conflict differently. You'll move slower, not from fatigue, but from depth. You'll hear the world not as noise, but as tone. And most of all, you'll feel less alone in your own skin. That's the re-entry. not fireworks, but fidelity, not ecstasy, but embodiment. This is where the real path begins, not in the visions, but in the remembering. Every day that you're already home, the light body doesn't need you to do more. It needs you to be with it more. That with is the ritual. And every time you choose presence over performance, the temple brightens, not because you lit a candle, but because you became one. You begin to realize that nothing outside needs to change. The ritual is not about escaping the world. It's about walking through it differently. The way you stir your tea, the way you listen without planning your next sentence, the way you feel time moving inside your breath. These moments are not interruptions in your day, they are the day. Because when your light body is active, nothing is separate. Every encounter becomes an initiation. Every silence, a song. Every decision, a tuning. You stop asking what you're supposed to do. You start asking what wants to emerge from coherence. You stop striving to be powerful. You begin to realize that stillness is the highest form of power. Because stillness holds the grid intact, you become less reactive, not from apathy, but from inner fullness. You're no longer triggered by every shadow, because you've become the one holding the flame, and that flame is not lit from effort. It is sustained by resonance. This is why spiritual performance exhausts people, because they're trying to emulate what only embodiment can radiate. But you remember now, and your remembering doesn't make you superior, it makes you responsible. Because once you've returned to the temple within, you carry that temple everywhere. Your presence becomes the ritual, your gaze becomes the blessing, your voice becomes a tuning fork for those still lost in noise. This is what Thoth taught, that true mastery is silent, invisible, internal, not seen in robes or titles, but felt in the field. And now the field is yours, not as ownership, but as stewardship. You are a keeper of frequency now, so breathe. Speak less, but speak clearer. Move less, but move truer. Let your light body set the rhythm. Let your spine remember its chant. Let your breath become your ceremony. This is not the end of the path. It is the re-entry into your original one, the one you walked before forgetting, the one you carried across lifetimes, the one that brought you here. There are more rituals waiting, more echoes to decode, more fields to remember. But for now, you've returned, and the temple, the true one, was always you. There is a flame that precedes form. It is not lit by breath, nor by mantra, nor by ritual. It is simply always burning, quiet, steady, unseen, yet undeniable. The ancients did not name it lightly. They called it the eternal fire, the undying current, the source from which even light was born. This flame does not flicker when the wind comes, because it does not belong to the elements. It holds them, and you carry it. You have carried it since before your first inhale, before your first name, before you learned to forget. It lives not in your mind, not even in your chest. It lives beneath identity, beneath emotion, beneath even the light body you now remember. And it waits, not to be found, but to be felt. You can't summon it, you can't control it, but you can become still enough to notice that it never left. This is what changes everything. When you stop chasing activation and start honoring presence. When you realize your body of light was never your destination, but the vessel for something deeper. The flame, that which watches you sleep, that which holds your frequency when your voice shakes, that which knows when you are lying to yourself, and forgives, and remains. This is why the most awakened beings seem empty, not because they lack personality, but because they are no longer possessed by form. They are governed by flame, their body, just a robe, their words, just echoes of fire, their breath, a wind passing through a sacred torch. You've met people like this, maybe only once. Their presence quiets the noise inside you. Their silence says more than any teaching. You feel seen. That is the flame, recognizing itself. And if you've felt it during this journey, if something ancient in you warmed, without a reason, the flame is remembering you too. It doesn't demand anything. It doesn't shout. It simply holds, even when you can't, especially then. And so, the real path begins not with effort, but with reverence. A reverence for the flame you are, the flame you forgot, the flame that does not need light to burn, because it is light before it takes form. So pause now, feel it, not with emotion, not with imagination, but with awareness, even if it's faint, even if it's just a warmth in the lower belly, even if it's just a silence inside your silence. Let that be enough. That silence is holy. And from that silence, creation begins. Because from here on, we do not chase light, we carry it. Some say the journey ends with light, but it doesn't. It ends with sound. Not a sound you hear, but one that remains. After the teaching ends, after the breath slows, after the silence deepens, there's a tone that stays, like the ringing after a sacred bell, like the pulse after a dream, like the whisper that doesn't speak, but answers. That tone is not the goal, it is the witness. It has watched your search, felt your forgetting, held your becoming, and now it vibrates differently, because something in you changed. Not everything, not all at once, but something essential returned to alignment, and that is enough. You are no longer seeking your light body, you are listening from it. You are no longer chasing the code, you are vibrating it. You are no longer asking if you are ready, you are responding as one who already is. And so, this is not a goodbye. This is a resonance, a tone sent into the field, and for those who remember, for those who awaken, for those who become the sound that ends the search. If something eternal opened inside you during this ritual, click like. That is your final tone. And if you know, not believe, not think, but know, that your frequency was activated here, subscribe. This is your place, your temple, your sound, your return. And now, for those ready to carry this frequency forward, comment below, "I am the sound behind the silence." And let these words echo, not for the algorithm, but for the grid, for those still walking toward their tone, so they may hear it through you. The body of light is not something you wear, it is something you become audible within. And now, you sound different. This is where the next portal begins.